They're guys. They do magic. They are the Magic Guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 238 of the Magic Guys. To my left, we got Nick K.
That's right. I'm Nick K. And up above, down below, all around us is the Holy Spirit of...
We got Doug Kahn.
What's up, y'all? Daddy's home.
Oh, yeah.
This is the Magic Guys podcast, where we as professionals share our journey, give you advice where we can, interview wonderful guests. And today we're actually doing the combination of both, which is...
especially for you.
But Nick, who we got some friends in the chat because we do this live, baby.
That's
Who
right, friends. We do it live and we interview some folks. We'd like you to just, if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. We'll throw them at our guest. And thank you all for being here. We have Ed Blythe. Good to see you here, buddy. We have Tim asking them questions. And we have a new one here. We have plain old Bill. So cool. Guys, if you have your questions, pop them in there and we'll throw them around.
Yes. And Nick, Melbourne Theatre Magic is booming. It's
Yeah,
great
buddy.
to see. You're going to see more and more content of it coming up in the weeks if you're not following it already. And Doug, what do you have there, Doug? That looks like the latest.
Nick, right before the stream started, Nick said we should jam on ideas of things you could do with tricks. And last week at work at Trick Supply, I was suggesting to Wolfgang Wallet, the proprietor, that we should start a series of magic tricks that should not exist. This is one of them. It's a playing card, the Mylar flower. No one seems to know what to do with this thing, but Nick, Nick, you'll just ramble for 30 minutes on ideas.
We're going to save that.
We have a great guest, but let's get
He's
back
already
to
got
the,
ideas. Yeah.
I've
All right,
got
ladies
one,
and gentlemen.
but yeah, that's what that is.
Let's save it for the jam week. Hell yeah, absolutely.
Nick will go off course, and we'll never get to Jason. So
100%. So, ladies and gentlemen, this week we have a Las Vegas magician, and he has 25 years of experience in the magic game, everywhere from cruise ships to the Vegas Strip. But today he's sharing his real-world approach to building a career in magic through systems, strategy, and collaboration. So please welcome, it's Jason Bird.
go pros in the house.
What's up, guys?
Jason Bird, thanks for being here, buddy. The chat is lit. We got friends from Montreal. We've got all kinds of guff in here. So please tell us who you are and what do you do?
My name is Jason Bird. I have been doing magic for 27 years professionally now. I moved to Vegas when I turned 18. I said, Mom and Dad, this is where all the magicians live. I got to go. And I've been doing magic.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Buddy, you look great. How old are you?
We don't ask that around here.
Yeah,
no,
that's
46.
Sorry.
I'm 40,
How much do you
46.
weigh?
How much do you eat?
Man, you're doing great for like you wouldn't. First of all, no one would guess you're 46. You have a full head of hair.
Good.
You look so joyful and full of life, and so that's got to be a testament.
I'm not
to
dead
how,
yet.
Yeah, that's right. That's got to be a testament to how youthful doing something you love can keep you. You know, that or something else that I'm not aware of, but I think that might be it.
No, man, magic keeps us young. It's a fact. You wake up every day and have this wonderful art to think about. We're never done either. We can always keep thinking about it. Even what Marlowe and Di Vernon were both actively creating in their 90s, I think. So
Yeah.
That's right.
Crazy.
You're only halfway done, Jason. You got 45 more years.
Good.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. But you look great. And again, you've been in Vegas since 18. You've been crushing the game out there. Tell us the sort of events you've been doing as well as your TV spots. Tell us everything.
Yeah, so I started my first professional magic gig was at Caesar's Magical Empire, which I don't know if you guys ever had a chance to see it, but really cool, like a themed attraction at Caesar's Palace where they had wizards walking around and that kind of thing. So that was my first first professional gig in Las Vegas, and then
were you
from
working
there,
with Lee Asher back in the day?
Yeah. I met Lee like in '99. Yeah.
That's cool.
Lee was at that joint, and Daryl was one of the featured close-up artists there too. Right?
Yes, I saw his act, his ambitious card where he makes it appear just underneath the rope, like at the top.
Oh,
It's
man,
so good. It's mind blowing. I got to see him do it live, which is really cool. And then from there, it just kind of evolved, and I started my own business and started doing corporate gigs, mostly walk around in the beginning. I still do walk around to this day. I love it. It's an art form unlike any other. And this is what I bring up in the book is that, the money's good. Like I still do it to this day, but I started doing like bigger shows for corporate events, company parties. And then got my first spot on Masters of Illusion. I did my drone magic trick, my drone card trick. And I was on three seasons of that show, and then started booking cruise ships. I've been working a lot of cruise ships lately, doing my shows on cruise ships. But like I said, I'm flying all over the place doing walk around magic because it pays, and they'll pay you to come fly anywhere you want. So it doesn't actually matter where you live really anymore.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. So for everyone in the chat, people are already talking about this book you have and how it's great. And so we're going to jump straight into it because the reason we brought you on is the release of your new book, which is here, Strolling for Dollars. Let me enlarge that. How to Make a Living from Close-Up Magic. Now, this is not a small book, okay? This is full. There's so much.
The pages are 1/4 inch thick, so this
This is 12 pages total,
people.
Yeah. Now
we carved them out of stone, like in the like old guys do.
Now I can already sell it. We actually don't have to do this whole podcast. I feel like I could sell this in like 30 seconds and we're good. But for the sake of, we are contractually obliged to do a full hour, and that's what we Jason for. But while we're talking about this, if something strikes a nerve and you're like, this is stuff that's going to be good for me, we have a QR code in the top corner of our screen right now, which you can just click and go buy it, or you can use the link below in wherever you're watching or listening to this, as we dive deeper. See, I'm just trying to save time on my words here, but.
I never know when it's Aussie talk or you're
Yeah.
I should have just gone with it.
As we dive into this, that dive means diving deep. I mean, you youngins. But let me just say this: what is fascinating in here is it literally has the synopsis I would give is that this has every little thing you might not have thought about when it comes to being a full-time magician. It even has a chapter on there where it talks about if you should do magic full-time. It has the business stuff in there, like the tax things you need to know, how to set yourself up as a business. There are actual scripts in there for when people ask you how much you charge. Like there's a script on how to actually deliver it properly and not sound like, oh, I kind of charge maybe this, but is like how to actually sound like you know what you're worth. And then there's a bunch of interviews from professional magicians, like a good, wad of it is from people actually doing it. And then just, one of the smallest bits that I really love in that book is Jason talks about how there's such an unlimited amount of potential of events out there for magicians to be at. This is not a competitor's market. Like the thing that really solidified it for me in there was just these little words that said good magic creates more magic or creates more opportunity. So like if you just do a good job, all the people at that event will now think of having a magician at their event.
Yep.
And so now you've just created opportunities for 10 other events. And that's what it's about. It's not about undercutting someone to get that one gig or else you'll never have a gig again. It's just do good magic.
And seeing that it is, the thickness of a Bible, let's talk about the genesis of it and what made you want to write it to begin with.
Yeah, so like I said, I had a lot of time on my hands. When you do cruise ships, you have a lot of downtime. So I was like, you know what? Instead of just watching YouTube all day, why don't I do something productive? And I thought, you know what? If there's one subject I think I'm uniquely qualified to talk about is walk around magic, just because I don't know very many people that have done more than me over the last 25 years. So I was like, I should just do that. So it's been almost 2 years now that I've been writing the book. And it was a fascinating exercise to really think about the art and really think about, every little detail. Like you said, like I really go like granular, about even the thoughts that you have while you're performing and, all these different things. And I try to, if I could think of it, I put it in the book. It was literally that simple. I was like, nope, it's going in the book. And so that was the genesis of it. And like you said, like good magic leads to more magic, that it's not a sum zero game, that there's only so many gigs. That's just a limiting way to thinking. Like if you have other people booking you're booking other people and just more magic, it's going to increase the size of the pie. It's not even so much your slice of it. The whole pie gets bigger. So that's really what I wanted to empower people to do, because I've seen it. I've seen enough people, struggle, or I've known plenty of magicians that are fantastic and they just can't seem to make it work, like on the business side of it. And they just seem very, illiterate when it comes to the business side of things, So I was like, if that's what the person's having trouble with, that's what I want to help them with. If they're having trouble, with crowd management, that's what I want to help them with. So, every little thing from the performance to the business side is out there. And then the interviews are just kind of icing on the cake. And even I learned a lot from interviewing some of those people. I was like, oh man, I have never thought about that before. I learned so much talking with those people. It was fantastic.
That's amazing. And,
one of the things we get asked a lot.
No, sorry.
One of the things we get asked about a lot is like there is a fear that comes along with the roving gig and approaching strangers, and we get asked that more than anything when it comes to the sort of the questions on the pod and whatever else. When we do have these spitballing sessions and try to help our listeners, what advice do you have for folks trying to overcome that fear?
I would agree. It's probably the number one thing. At least, I mean, it was for me. Even to this day, I still get nervous. That's why I give the advice in the book that when you start your gig, at least for me personally, I try to do my first table as soon as I possibly can. Because once you get that first table out of the way, everything else is just fine. It's when you don't perform for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you start looking for that perfect table, and there's no such thing as a perfect table. So you start to psych yourself out, So for me, it was like, hey, try to get out there and do the first thing that you possibly can. But then it's really just have a script. That's what I would say the biggest thing. So especially those first few lines, have something like verbatim, word for word, that is a script that you that it's good. And you can put that almost on autopilot, because then that frees your mind up to actually talk and interact and respond to the people that you're talking to. So, and that's, you got to keep your mind free so that you can notice those kinds of moments, and the way to do that is with a good script. So, okay, I know this I got my beats. I know the exact jokes like that I lead up to it, like right before. And I rarely deviate from that. And I just know that it's like a natural kind of launch pad. And I talk about, scripting and how to come up with that approach at your table. But once you do, just stick with it, and you can kind of almost like rely on it, so that you can almost like put it on autopilot. You don't have to stress about it. You just go right into the script, and then you just boom. And then you leave yourself open to respond when they respond. And that's what makes the performance unique then at that point. But yeah, you're right. It's trial by fire a lot of times. So you're walking around these gigs and it's like, they didn't come to see you. There's no, like, they didn't come even go sit at a stage. Like they were just having dinner, and now you're walking up to them. So you kind of have to have a certain mindset about it, just like kind of real dialed in, and just know in your heart, these people are going to love what I'm doing. They don't know it yet, but they're going to end up loving it. And they always do. They always love it. Well, almost always. But you'll learn those situations too. And a lot of times I can pretty much know immediately when I walk up to a table, like, oh, did I make a mistake? Should I not have walked up to this table? Or, oh, this table is going to be really fun. You can just pick up on people's vibes, when you walk.
Talk a bit about that. Like
table.
If you hit a rough spot, maybe how do you bow out gracefully, or how do you handle like when a table is maybe not good and you're there?
That's why part of my biggest advice is I tell people to start with your strongest trick. Most people would say end with your strongest trick, but with walk around, I almost think it's important just to get the first one, just bam, hit them really hard. And it's a test. It's a test for them too. And because you're like, okay, well, I just showed you the best thing I do. So if you didn't like that, it's not going to get any better from here. Like, you know, so you can, then you just do one trick. They don't know that you were going to do 3 or whatever. You just say, hey, thank you so much. Enjoy your night. And you walk off. It's a numbers game. Walk around is all about a numbers game. So if this table's not great, there's another one 10 feet from you and they might love it, you know? So go work that table.
I love that advice of starting with a banger. You know, I do follow that approach on the street, which is kind of the same environment, meeting strangers. You have to impress them, make them like you right away. And it's a lot of times people don't think that way about a short magic act, but yeah, I dig it. Cool.
I love that. Hey, we had a question from our comment section. Now, we've answered this question before, the three of us, but I'm really interested to hear your advice on this coming from working gigs in Vegas in a hot climate. So Tim Underwood has asked, what are your tips on how to stay cool if you're having to do an outdoor gig in warm weather while still looking crisp and profesh? Do you have thoughts on this? Does this come up?
If you figure it out, let me know. No, the main thing I would, a handkerchief, that's non-negotiable. You have to have a handkerchief in your pocket because I do sweat a lot at gigs, and especially like my costume, it's a lot of velvet coats, just that's how I roll. So those are really hot. And but the handkerchief is a good idea. They do make, I think, I can't remember if I had one at one point, but they hang around your neck. You wouldn't wear it for the gig, but maybe on your breaks you could just put it on. But it's like a horseshoe kind of shape that goes around your neck, and it blows up, like it sucks the air from underneath here and it blows it up. So it without it being over your face or whatever, it kind of cools you from the bottom up. I think some of them might mist, but I don't think most of them do, but that might be a good alternative. And, if you're going to be working outside, I put this in the book too, make sure you wear sunscreen. Cause I've been burned many times working gigs that I was like, oh, this will be fine. And then the sun, slowly comes up over the hotel and now you're in the, in the beating sunlight. And then, it doesn't take very long to get burned if you don't have.
Surprising how bad things can go quickly when you're not used to being in the sun for an hour, much less 3 actively performing.
Yep.
Yeah. And if you're in Brisbane, which is basically a quarter mile from the sun, it gets warm there, like most definitely. Thankfully, there is something that I've mentioned on previous episodes. I implore you, Jason, scope it out. It's called an Arctic cooling vest. And it's effectively a vest which has these gels inside of it, which you soak it in water. The gels activate. You put it in the fridge. They can freeze, and then you can wear it underneath just as a vest. You wear a size that's tight on your body, so it's skin tight. You put your jacket on top, none the wiser, and it'll lower your body temperature by 18 degrees. It's the type of thing you'll see the Formula One drivers wearing when they're in Singapore in really hot environments on the thing when they do the national anthem and so forth, and then they'll take that off, put their suit on, and then go racing. So. It is intended for sports use. I have 3 of them, and I use them in circulation come summertime. But without them, it would be the death of me. Like, as I wear a 3-piece suit, mohair suit.
Yeah, me too.
So how are they not sponsoring us? Honestly,
I know. We mentioned
you guys got to work on that.
100%. Yeah. And then my little tidbit for friends would be. Like controlling my breathing seems to be a massive one.
Yes, that's a huge one.
Really can make myself relax. Like your body will react to your mind. If you let your body do the reacting, you're screwed. And then being really rehearsed and comfortable in this situation will stop, because the moment you get nervous, your heart races and that makes you sweat. It's like you'll see any magician that, like, if something goes wrong in a show, the first thing will happen is they'll start sweating because now, like, so like the more you can just chill, relax, know what you're going to do because you're prepared, that will really, really, really help you not get into that situation as well. But look, talking about actual, how do you plan to do magic? Ed here has asked, what type of tricks make up your strolling act? Is it cards, or do you do 3 sets? What is your preference?
When I come up with a set, it's usually 3 tricks. I just found that that's kind of the sweet spot. You're still leaving them wanting more, but you still got to get a good flow of different things. This is just me personally. I know everybody's different. I would not do 3 card tricks like in a row if I was doing my 3 set. I think magicians love cards a lot more than audience members do. So if you've got 1, maybe 2 really strong card tricks, and I probably wouldn't even do those 2 in the same set. So I usually have 3 sets of 3 tricks. That's when I go out to a gig. So I know I've got 3 solid acts, and I can go to the same table a little bit later in the night and show them 3 completely different tricks. But each of those 3 tricks has like a flow to it. So I might, one of my routines, I think I open with the card trick, and then another one, I think I close with it. But I would try to just do something different. So I would do maybe one thing cards, one thing like a mentalism kind of thing, and then another thing, another magic, like I don't know, a prediction, or something that's like, again, bringing the kind of the energy back up. But I like texture in my performances, so that's why I know some guys they would just go out and do 5 card tricks in a row. I don't. That's not me. I don't think that's I love card tricks, but I just think, to have a little bit of variation and have some texture to that 3 trick set, I think is great. So that's how I structure my sets. I start really strong, and then kind of, maybe talk a little bit more, and it kind of, dips down a little bit during the middle. That maybe that's when they get to know me, and I talk a little bit more kind of personal, because now they've seen one thing. So as soon as they see one trick and they know you're for real, because anybody could just say they're a magician, but once they see how good you are, then all of a sudden you have their attention, So I kind of use that. And then the third one, I bounce right back up with something really, really strong again.
Yeah. When doing magic, I make it a rule in my head to never start my set with card magic. So that they don't get that pre-consumption of, he's going to do a card trick and it's going to be the one where he finds it. And so it's always something else, like a coin trick with a bottle production, if it's like a gala table, or a pen trick. A lot of viewers who've seen me a lot will know my little Sharpie routine. It's always something non-card related. But something I loved in your book was how you choose which of your tricks you do to put in your strolling set, as in like how do you know which ones are strong enough to go in your set? And you worded it kind of nicely. You're like, you're not choosing the tricks that people were impressed by the method at your magic club. This has to be like hard hitting stuff for the public. And so what could you talk about that a little bit more as well? Because that's interesting. You can't just do every Acon, because that impresses the magic club,
And that's another thing, is I try to stay somewhat flexible in my routines too, so that I have outs. It's almost like, and I've been doing this for years, but Joan Decor said it this way, that it's almost like a flow chart, that if you do one thing, did they like it? Yes. Did they not? Here. And then, you kind of branch off, and it's like a choose your own adventure kind of show, where you kind of know, okay, this is where I can bring them back. And, obviously that's a little bit complex, and you got to know your material really well. You just stay kind of adapted to the group and do stuff. And this is why it's so important to listen to your audience, and because we fall in love with our tricks, and there's ones, and I'm as guilty as anybody. Like, I'll keep it in the show because I'm like, you're gonna like this. This is really good. And you can just tell that they're not vibing with it like you hope they would. And at the end of the day, I mean, give it a chance. Maybe there was a bad audience or whatever. But if I do it a few dozen times or whatever, and it's like, man, this thing has never hit, either change something drastic about it to make it hit, or maybe that's just not, maybe it doesn't just jive with your personality. Maybe it's not a good trick. You never know. So you have to be brutally honest with yourself when you're assessing your magic set, and that's why, again, it's important to listen to your audience, because they will tell you. They'll tell you with their eyes, they'll tell you with their expressions, with the way they breathe, with the way they, relax or tensen up. Like, you got to pay attention to all those little things, and they will tell you exactly how they feel about the trick, if you know what to look for. So you just got to make sure you look for it.
Well, I guess that comes down to an audience psychology of like when you approach a group, like
Yeah.
which person do you choose in order to break up? Like, say Dave is an alpha of the group, who's the loudest one. You kind of want to get them to stop talking and say, "You there? Would you choose the card politely?" Like, what sort of tips do you have with regards to dealing with individual audience members, and also like the rejection that you might get from those folks as well?
Wow, well, those are two important things, kind of different. So the first one, if you know you've got one of those people that are they're just not going to let you work, they're going to be a problem, and it's going to happen. So you kind of have to be mentally prepared for that. It's not the end of the world. Again, if they're being that bad, you just excuse yourself and you walk away. You don't have to be a jerk. You just say, it was nice meeting you all tonight, and you just get out of there and you go to somewhere else. But as far as if you run into that type of person, I try to give them, at least this is me, I want to challenge them as little as possible, so I want to either bring them into the show, like you said, actually have them choose the card, so to almost give them something to do, and you're kind of like putting that faux kind of spotlight on them, like, oh, look at you, and it comes into consideration, and some of that again comes from walking up to a group, and you can just tell, oh, this guy's here on a first date with this girl, and he's meeting she's meeting all of his friends for the first time or whatever. You never know where people are coming from when you walk up to a table. So be empathetic, be understanding. And sometimes they're not trying to necessarily mess you up. They just don't know how to behave as an audience member. Their ego just won't let them do that. Just let you have a show. And so I try to involve them as. Sometimes I'll have them choose a card if they're the right kind of person. If I think I can win them over and be like, oh, I think I got you. I think I know exactly what to do. And I'll try that, and I'll have them do something, and then you can kind of get them to be quiet for a while. Or if it's just not happening, then I will actually go the other way and specifically almost like X them out of the group. Like, like if they're over at the side, I'll literally turn like my back to that person and have somebody else choose a card. And now it's almost like, okay, well, you don't know how to behave, so you don't get to be part of the group. And you can do all that subconsciously just with your body language. And it's crazy how often they get the message and they're like, oh, okay, this guy is not going to let me run over him. And they give you like respect, and all of a sudden they snap too, and it's fine after that. And then worst case scenario, if they're not fine after that, again, you just walk away. Hey, it was nice meeting everybody. Yeah. And a lot of times what'll happen, especially if you do like cocktail hours or whatever, those groups are constantly breaking up, and people are moving around and they're reforming in different spots. So you just remember who that person is. I've done stuff before where the people, I knew who else was at the table, and I could tell they were really into it, but this guy was just being not fun. He was being a jerk. So I'll be like, hey, I'll tell you what, if I'm walking around the party, I'll see you a little bit later. I'll show you something else, to the good people. And then, maybe 30 minutes later, all of a sudden they're with a totally different group of people, or they're by themselves. And I go up and I'll show them the trick, or a few things. And I've had lots of people go like, oh, you handled that really well. Like, I'm so sorry about my friend, blah, blah, blah. And they'll, apologize for them. But, yeah, that's what I would say is the 3 levels to it.
And what we're talking about, for those listening, this is a very small part of Strolling Gigs. This is not, you're not going to encounter this at every other table. This is like
but it's 3%.
The fear.
Yeah,
the fear.
It is the fear.
That's right.
And it's for you guys to understand that, like, we only fear, like, there's only 2% you got to fear. The 98% is going to be like a good time. And is
that's probably a good estimate. Yeah.
And is the squeeze worth the juice? Yeah.
Like once you realize that someone heckling you and you politely walking away doesn't affect anything. Like, it doesn't affect how the client thinks of you. It doesn't affect how the audience thought of you. It doesn't affect anyone's opinion. You don't get paid any less. Nothing bad happens. Then you'll be like, oh, I can just leave that group early. Like, once you clock that, you can be so confident, deliver that line. Well, it's nice meeting you, and move along. And then, and what's so great is all of those kind of things are in this book, my friends. Okay. So again, he even talks about what we just mentioned, how to put together a routine. Something that we don't have in Australia is a tipping culture. But obviously, I know a lot of friends of ours in the US, especially doing restaurants and things, will a lot of their living will come from tips. So I noticed there was a section in there. You have some tips for tipping, which is very clever. We should coin that.
I think there's a few establishments in Vegas that employ magicians like every day, and those guys are working for mostly tips, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm.
Yep.
There's there's a couple like capos, I think, and like the John Wick Experience has magicians nightly.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I think they do pay their magicians a nominal fee, but most of the real money is in the tips they make from there.
Yeah.
You know,
But if you can't get tips, we can't make money. So what advice do you have for our friends in the tip economy?
See, I make a distinction at the beginning of the book that's where something like Doug, where you were talking about like, busking, and then, it being a kind of a corollary adjacent to restaurant magic is, and I say that the kind of strolling magic, even though it might be technically strolling magic, the kind of gigs that I'm talking about is where you're paid to be there. You don't have to worry about the tips. That's why I kind of draw a line of like, that's kind of what makes that real in a way that strolling magic isn't, because when you got to hustle for tips, it is a different mindset. You have to have your tip lines and, your hat lines and all that stuff. So it is a little bit different of a psychology. So I'm actually more comfortable with the other side of like, hey, I'm getting paid really good money to be here. I don't need to hustle for tips. I'm being paid well. And in fact, usually my first line when somebody tips me is I say, no. I said, they pay me very well to be here. Don't worry about that. You don't have to do that. Most of the time they'll insist, and then eventually, if it's a good tip, then I'd be like, okay, I'll take it. But
I agree 100%
frees you up.
with all that.
Yeah, it frees you up to not have to worry about the tips. That's why then when you get a nice tip, when you get $100 bill or whatever, and you're like, that's bonus. That's really cool. But you don't have to rely on it. I've done street magic busking before, and it was like when it's only tips, all of a sudden that's just even more terrifying. So that's why this book is a little bit more geared towards you're finding work with agents, with clients, directly, and you're booking, and you're getting paid before you leave the house. So that's kind of more the realm I live in.
I really love that line. No, don't worry. I'm paid really well to be here. That's so good.
Look, I've worked restaurants where I wasn't paid really well, but I projected that attitude when tips were important, and then the tips I got were, and I still refused them the first time. Like you said, they always insisted, and it was never a couple bucks. It was always a 20 or more. And that was, we're talking late 90s when I was regularly strolling restaurants. So that's some advice. Just portray your value.
Yeah. There's a couple of comments here that I think lead to an interesting question. One was here about doing a 32 phase ambitious card and so forth.
Only 32?
Yeah, well, exactly.
Mine's only 31.
Well, there's. Do you think
that's what I call a good start?
Yeah. Do you think there's a time that you should be spending with people in which like X amount of time is perfect, don't overkeep your stay? What do you think is the ideal amount of time to spend with the group?
This is just me personally, because I've seen people make it work other ways. Like I say this in the book, I've seen Daniel Cross just like throw down a table and do a 30-minute close-up show for anybody that wanted to come around. And he did like 2 of those in an hour, and then he was gone. And here I am like walking table to table. And I was like, that's kind of cool, but it's not really my style. I like to show as many people as much magic as possible the time that I'm there. So I would say my normal set is probably 3 effects that are probably 8 to 10 minutes. I would say at each spot, and they play big enough that I can gather a pretty big crowd, and that counts as one of my sets. But, and again, this is assuming everything kind of goes to plan normal. If they really stink, I'm not going to sit there for 3 tricks. I know some magicians that are like, no, you're going to see everything I got. And I'm like, why would you do that to yourself? They're not into it. Like, just cut bait and go. And again, like you said, it's 2%. It's not that, I don't want to freak people out, but it's better to be prepared for it and not need it than need it and not be prepared for it. So
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say probably 8 to 10 minutes. You know, if they're a really good group, I might throw a fourth one in there, you know, maybe a new thing that I'm working on or something that like hits really strong and I'm just trying it out. And I'll even say, hey, this is a new trick. You guys want to see something really new? And of course, at that point, they're like, oh my God, yeah, that'd be great. And then you just set it up as something special. And then also that's my time to like, if I'm going to mess up a trick, it's because I set it up this way. You know, and it's almost like, oh, he's just learning it. People are so understanding about stuff like that. If you just said it, even if it's something you've done 1,000 times, they don't know that. You could be like, hey, do you want to see something new? And then you know, show them this trick. And if for some reason it does mess up or whatever, you cover over it, move on and do another one. But yeah, I would say 8 to 10 minutes is probably the sweet spot.
Yeah, and I think you're talking from definitely a corporate perspective where if you had a table at 10, that would be perfect. You have like 10 tables, you're there for a couple of hours, you do 10 minutes at each table, you're great. You know, but also I think that you know, it's also depending on your environment. If you're doing a restaurant and they're making cocktails, each cocktail takes 5 minutes to make, and there's 10 people at a table, you spend a little time with them and just say, you know, thank you for your patience. And you finish your set and go, great, your cocktails shouldn't be too far away. Let me go check up on them for you. And you walk away. And then cocktails come out 2 minutes later. Like there is that customer experience being key in a strolling realm.
Really good question from Alex.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you were roving, there's one here from, okay.
So, these are all good questions everyone's putting in the chat. So thank you, everyone. Good. But from Alex, serious question. So banquet table. So this is the big round table. Everyone's tightly seated inside with no room to work because everyone's sort of shoulder to shoulder and people have to turn 180 from their food to see you sometimes. Jason, what do you do in that situation? What's your opening line or way to sort of get into that?
I don't know if I think the opening line would be kind of the same, but what I would do, because I worked those before, the 10 top, you know, big round banquet tables, is I typically, because it's sometimes hard to just wedge yourself in between two of those seats because they're pretty, you know, tight. So what I'll look for is an opening. So maybe one person at the table that's not sitting in their seat, and I'll walk up into that kind of blank space, introduce myself, but I walk all the way up to the edge of the table. So that way, even the people at the worst angle are right next to me and they're still just turning their heads and they can see me right there. So they don't have to turn around at all. It's just like, oh, you're right here. So in some respects, they have the best seat in the house because they're right next to you, but angle wise, probably the worst seats, you know, but I'll still play everything. And this is where effect selection comes in is, you know, in that case, I would do something where you actually do have to look down on it. So I would put it in the middle of the table because that way now you've just negated the fact that it's a circle because everybody's now looking into the center of it. So everybody kind of in a weird way has the exact same perspective on whatever you're showing them. So that's a good time to do something that is actually lay flat on a table so that everybody can look down on it, whether it's, you know, whatever, like invisible deck, some type of card. Yeah, perfect example. Yeah. So I would put that in the middle of the table, give everybody something to focus on, and then from there you just literally just walk, you know, you pick up the deck and then you spread through, and so everybody's looking down and having the same angle at those cards looking down, and then that one card's upside down and bang. Like it's killer.
A couple of examples. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah. No, it's just your effect selection will save you in those instances.
Yeah, a couple of quick examples I can think of is one I remember seeing David Penn talk about, and now I do it in this situation, is liquid metal, the fork bending, because you can do the routine by leaning the hand that has the fork over the shoulder of someone and they're blowing on the fork or whatever. So they're watching it directly. And now you're the magic is happening in the table. So you can do that. So every single phase, you can move around to another person, hold it out in front of them. So everyone's going to see them reacting to the fork, but everyone can see it. And then now this routine I don't do, but there's Sam Angelico, Australian FISM winner from back in the 80s. He lectures this routine where he has a folded up envelope with a rubber band around it, and he gives it to one person. He goes, what do you think's in it? And it feels flat. And they might guess money. And he goes, interesting, pass it to the next person. And he lets everyone pass it around and try and guess what it is. And then when he opens it up, he takes out a shot glass and boom, you've got your first effect. And it's from like a thing that gets passed around the whole audience.
That's cool.
And so to what Jason's point, so your advice is not so much how do I get everyone to move out of the way or whatever, it's actually how do you choose an effect that can work where it's in the table, so to speak. You set something down, a prediction, something like that.
Yeah, it's perfect. I used to do when I would walk up, because I'm also doing it that way, having something passed out. I love, because it builds intrigue, it builds suspense of like, oh, what is that thing? Like that's why when I use a Kennedy box for my ambitious routine, and I'll the first thing I walk up when I'd be like, oh, hey, this is for you. And it's got a rubber band around it. And I say, well, you can't open it yet, but that's for you for later. And then you almost forget about it. But now people are, all they can think about is that little box that you, you give that person, what's in the box? So, and then it kind of builds intrigue. And then at the end, you almost remind them, oh, remember that thing at the very beginning? Bam, there's your card signed in it or whatever. It can be a really strong way to start your set is by not even telling right away that you're a magician, but, oh, this is for you. And you hand them that. They're like, what? There's instant like intrigue there, when you do that.
Yeah. There's a question here from Brad Morgan that raises an interesting point just with regards to routining. Basically he's asking, do you have a bag or something that you used to carry, or is everything on your person when you perform?
I have done it different ways over the years. I've kind of settled on, I bring a little tiny, like it's either a tool kit or a makeup kit. It's just a cheap from Harbor Freight or wherever online. A little case, like a hard-sided case, and it's real small. I don't like carrying something really big with me, even the size of a briefcase. I just bring a nice case, small enough that I can throw everything in there, and I find a place that I can kind of stash it for the gig. And I tell the people, the bartender or whatever that's kind of watching it, I'll be like, hey, I need to access this a couple times throughout the night. And that's why I'll put probably 2 of my sets on me, and then another, 1 or 2 sets inside of my case, and that's behind the bar, behind whatever. And that's where you can keep your really special stuff. If you've got the deck of cards that says happy birthday, and the person's name or whatever, I wouldn't carry that around with me all the time on the off chance that somebody has a birthday that night, but I have it so that if I want to get the information, then go back later, and now I blow their minds because it says happy birthday on it or whatever. But again, I wouldn't dedicate pocket space to that on every time I go out. So that's the short answer is I keep probably 4 or 5 effects on me, and then the rest I keep in my case and I switch it out on my breaks.
You ever see folks rove with tables?
Yeah.
What the hell?
I know it's not my style. I've seen people pull it off. You brought up David Penn. David Penn says he's unapologetic about bringing a table around with him when he does hopping. And I was like, man, you're a better man than I, because to me, as little as I need to set up and take down, that's my sweet spot. So that's why if it can be in their hands, it can be up here, it can be, I don't even need a close-up pad, I don't need a table, it's just more to worry about in my head. And you want to be as adaptable as possible to anywhere that you go. And I say this in the book, it's fine if you want to use a table. To me, it's not okay if you have to have a table. There's a big difference, So, yeah. So
I guess it's also how you've sold it to the client, right?
That's true.
Because we're all talking about this stuff, and I know Doug has his very particular approach, which works super well, right, Doug? Like you'll sell it to the client that you'll set up an area where magic will happen and people can come up to you.
It's 2 different things. I often get calls for strolling entertainment, and that's fine when that's what the client needs. But I always encourage them to consider a more theatrical form, kind of like a Daniel Cross thing you're talking about, where you set up a station and people come to see you.
And a lot of people will dig that. They love that. Yeah. They were like, oh, I didn't think of that. That would be really great. Sometimes it's so much of it is educating your client on what they really want. Because sometimes they don't know, they just saw something or whatever. So you can usually guide them and be like, what I think would be even better? What if I set up a little table with a sign that says magic and people can come over to me and do a show? As long as you pitch, whatever you pitch is what you end up doing. Yeah. Whatever it is, you just can't switch.
On the event. Like sometimes the event needs strolling, and if that's the case, great. And if you're going to do theatrical, you better know how to stroll, because if you choose one approach and it's no good, you're going to still need to get to work. So it's like
exactly.
It's nice to be a jack of all trades in some respects when you're a close-up worker.
I could talk about this all day. Like I'm a big fan of RZ Wynn's style of magic, but I know from friends who have done gigs with him in a banquet setting, geez, they must have a good budget to book him. But he will actually walk into a table, he'll sit down, he'll say, all right, come and watch this. He'll do stuff, and then he'll say, go over to a table on the other end and ask them to name a card. And while they go away, stuff happens here, and now that table's finding out there's a magician because he's sent them over there, and he creates
That's brilliant.
I really love that as well. And so every now and then when because at every banquet table, there always seems to be like someone who didn't turn up, or like they've left the table, they've left the chair free that's like would have their back to the stage when they're doing speeches. So sometimes I will sit down if it's not a big, busy, massive banquet thing with lots of stuff. It's just a different approach. But all right, I want to get to the serious stuff, Jason, because it's great to get to these gigs, but what I feel like really helps you make a good living from strolling, and I know you know this, is to be able to get rebooked from the gigs you're at. Like the way we have this abundance of work is we do good magic and people from the event will want to book us, but also the client that had us. Yeah. It's almost like this gig is the audition for them to want to rebook you again, right? If we want to have this forever roll of events and build this snowball. So do you have tips or things you'll do specifically that sort of imply you have different magic to show your guests next time, or like, is there anything or do you offer a different package for next time, or like, how do you follow up with them? Like what's your sort of headspace at with, okay, I need to, get more work essentially in the nicest way possible from this event?
It's almost a mix of all the things that you just said. So first, do great magic, and then second of all, I would say is organization. As soon as somebody books you, they should be on your spreadsheet of like past clients, so that you can be they can be on your email newsletter. People just forget. You could be the best magician in the world, but I swear I've had people that are like, they'll do their event next year and I'll find out. I'll be like, why didn't you call me? And they're like, oh my God, I totally forgot about you. Like, don't take it personally. They just forget. So that you've got to be in people's ear all the time and reminding them that, oh, you had such a great time. This is that, whatever. Getting testimonials is a great way. So this is something I'm actually kind of bad at, but I've been trying to get more testimonials lately from the clients to be like, oh, Jason was great, blah, blah, blah. That'll help you get, rebooked, will help you get booked other places, and just be, this is going to sound so corny, but think of it as bigger than magic. Like a lot of my best clients, they're almost like my friends at this point, that you start to get to know them and they book you for events over time, and hey, how's, so-and-so, your daughter or whatever. And you kind of learn about their lives a little bit, and people want to do business with people they know, period. Like, so if you have a relationship with somebody, they're like 10 times as likely to go with you than some brand new person. I don't care how good their sizzle reel is. They know you, and they know you're good. And so they're way more likely to book you because they have already in the past. So, but again, people just are forgetful. So it's on you to stay on top of those people, send out Christmas cards to all your agents, send out birthday messages, put it in your calendar when their birthdays are. And so you can send them a little message. That goes so far with people. I mean, think about how impersonal the world is now. So if you got a handwritten card for Christmas, it's like, hey, thank you for being such a great client this year. Oh my God, you're in the top 1% of all the magicians out there. I promise you. Yeah.
One thing from my little side of the world, I will send out gift cards. Like these days you can do electronic ones. So I'll send out gift cards to my agents, like the ones that are booking gigs for me. They're not personal clients for having their own events. And then luckily I have a regular show in Brisbane, so we have a ticketed show. So I will, after an event, I will invite that person that booked me for their birthday or their wedding to come and see the show personally. And so having a thing, I reckon, like if everyone was to put on an event with the thing in mind that you're not going to make money from it, but you're going to personally invite everyone who's booked you for a gig before. Like, I reckon that would actually amp up and get you 10 gigs because now you're on top of mind.
Yes.
And the other thing is follow your clients back on social media. They're going to follow you on Instagram because they just booked you. Follow them back so you can see the stuff going on in their lives and comment. And
Yeah.
Be the friends that Jason's talking about. Yeah, I could talk about this all day. This is so good. And this is why you need to get the book, Strolling for $, available with the QR code if you're watching in video, or the links below. Again, look how thick this is. We're really just touching the surface, scratching
here.
the
surface. Yeah.
But okay, what's like the 3 things that people should know when deciding to try and make it a business doing magic? They're like, all right, I'm going to start trying to really make something of this. Like, what's like sort of the 3 important steps they should consider or do?
I think I would say that the first one is pick good magic. Pick something that's good for, like, if strolling is where you're going to go, if walk around magic is where you're going to go with this, pick magic that is conducive to that environment. Because you can save yourself so much heartache by not doing your favorite trick that you love, but that guy right here is going to see everything that you do, or whatever the case is. It has to be kind of bulletproof, from certain standpoints. That pick good magic. That's the number one thing I would do. The second thing on the business side is again, I touched on it before, is organization. You have to have a system. You have to have a plan, because if you just wing it, if you're out there and you're just responding to emails whenever you get them, or phone calls whenever you get them, or whatever, if you're not being proactive and trying to stay and have a system in place, because you can get lost real easy, for everything from taxes to your business structure to all kinds of stuff. You have to be organized, otherwise it's going to be a tough road to hoe. So that would be the next thing. And then the last one is just always never think that you know everything. I've been doing this for so long, and I think your first nail in the coffin is when you think you know everything. And I've seen so many people that they just have that attitude when they walk up to a table. They're just like, oh yeah, I'm the best. And it's okay to be confident. I'm not saying not that, but just like being so confident that you're not even open to learning new things. Like, I'll still do walk around gigs with other magicians, and it just a whole other branch opens up in my brain, because I'm like, I never thought about that before, but maybe it was a one line they said or one trick that they did, and it was just blew my mind. You have to be open to those experiences. And maybe the fourth thing would be listen to your audience. Get really good at hearing them. It's not all about you. It's a one-way street. You going towards them. You have to be picking up the signs. That's how you're going to learn what magic is hitting. That's how you're going to learn how to manage an audience. Just a myriad of things. It's by listening. It's like they say. Listen 80%, talk 20%. I don't think you can do that, quite get away with that and walk around, but but try to be listening more often than talking, or at least that's how it should feel in your head.
Yeah. There's a question from Tim Underwood. How many gigs per month would you say someone should aim for to comfortably go full time? And how can you make your marketing as entertaining as your show? Ooh.
Well, I'll start in reverse order. Your marketing should be as good as your material. I've said this forever. Like, it's not, when you're talking about, especially online, where people are just doing searches and whatever, it's almost irrelevant how good you actually are. What really matters is how good you're coming across. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean you should stink when you walk up to show up to your gig, but if people are booking you, that's all they have to go on, is that one video or those 3 pictures you have posted, or your website, or whatever it is. So you could be the best in the world, but if you don't have the marketing materials that pitches you how you should be, you're not going to work. You're just not going to work. So those have to be up to par. Whether that means you hire people to do that for you, like I've done video editing over the years. It's not my favorite, and I would rather be doing magic, not sitting behind a computer editing videos. So I pay people, to make them, and it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. What was the first part of the question again? It was,
how many gigs should someone,
okay,
be so aiming to have?
This is going to be a very unsatisfying answer, but it depends, because it's, first of all, how much are you charging per gig? that determines a lot of it. So I don't have to do nearly as many gigs as I do now as when I was performing back then, because I'm making so much more money per hour. And then the other thing is that's going to be up to you. You know, there's certain places in the country that you can live that are, you know, you got to make literally twice as much doing magic if you want to live in, you know, Laguna Beach or whatever, than if you're living in, I don't know, in the South or even Las Vegas is, you know, fairly low, although it's getting more expensive. It just depends on what your standard of living is and how much money you need to make every month. So I would work it the other way around. Instead of saying how many gigs, you say how much money do I need to earn this month to live this certain lifestyle. And then you just take that number, divide by the number of hours, and that's what you should be charging for hour, you know, let's say. But you have to listen to your market too. But that's what I would say, is it really depends on what you're charging and how much you want to work, and then what your market is.
You know, there's a few questions here regarding the exchange of money. So some are asking like with regards to pay to play websites, or perhaps, you know, like, do you take deposits or do you have them pay the full amount, you know, beforehand, etc. What's your advice when it comes to the exchange of money? So like, agreed to do everything, contracts are good to go. You've said, I'll be here at this location, this place, this time. What's the nicest way to exchange money? Do you get deposit?
100%. It is not a gig until you get a deposit. Like, if you do this long enough, you start to realize that's when people really put their money literally where their mouth is you can say like, oh, we love you, we want to hire you. Until you get a deposit, it is not a gig. And when I first started out, I was doing 50% deposit, and then I would do 50% day of the gig. But I honestly, nowadays I get 100% up front. So as soon as they book me, I say it's 100% deposit. And I give them all my guarantees. If you need to rebook within a year, you can apply this towards the next gig or whatever. That's usually what I do. But I get a deposit, because people will back out on you the day of if they don't have a deposit. If they don't have no skin in the game, then forget it.
Yeah. Advice I was given is, even if you're doing a cash gig, which we're all aware of those ones, when it's like a discounted rate, but you'll do it because you have nothing on Tuesday or whatever. Even that you should get a 10% deposit for, because that, again, the amount of, if I've ever had a gig cancel, it's the one that's like, oh yeah, I'll just give you cash and, you know, whatever, we'll have some fun. They're the ones that will flake on you.
Yeah.
So great advice. Get paid. Yeah. How often are you working with agents? Is that a big part of your work, or is that like a 20% thing?
You know, it used to be, I used to get most of my work through agencies. And I'm sure it's like this in a lot of places in the country. We say the word agent or agency. They're really more like talent brokers. They have their roster of people. So it's not like they're getting on the phone calls every day and pitching you to their corporate clients. It's when they come in with a request, hey, we think it'd be cool to have a magician. And now when they check their magician roster, you're, you know, ideally the first one on the list. So it used to be primarily that. I've transitioned more towards getting my own clients directly, just because it pays better. I'm a little bit more in control of the client relationship. You know, because agencies will get really freaked out if you try to give out a business card, you know, which is a big no-no. Never do that on an agent gig unless you've got an express permission to do so, but you don't hand out your own business cards. But that's why I like the private gigs too, that you book direct, because you can give out your business card to anybody you want. So you can be marketing to the next kind of people. But I would say it's probably about 50-50 now. I would say it was probably 70 to 80% agents, and then direct, you know, another 20-30%, but I would say it's probably closer to 50-50 now.
And how do you price your events? So the reason I ask is there's a question here from Mark Brown asking that the pricing for private events versus corporate events, like, is the 2-hour strolling price at a house party different or the same to a 2-hour rove with a company?
It is for me. I know some other magicians give a flat rate, and that's what they always are. To me, it feels like that's leaving money on the table, to be totally honest, because corporate events, when they're paying they might have a budget that's 10 times what that is. And if you just give them the same flat rate, to me, you're leaving so much money on the table. So now the caveat, you got to know what you're doing, when you start talking to them and you're trying to figure out what their budget is for that kind of thing. And there's all kinds of little tricks. I talk about it in the book of like how you can kind of get information about it. But I would definitely say those are two different things. So if somebody calls me and is like, hey, I got a couple calls yesterday. They're like, we're having a Halloween party. We want you to like, can you do like scary magic? And it's a house party for like 30 people. If I'm not busy, because it's like you said, a Tuesday, you're not working or whatever, and you're like, okay, it's not far from my house. I could just drive down there. I don't have to fly anywhere. That could be, I usually do a 2-hour minimum too. You want to make it worth your time to go out there. I have done gigs for 1 hour before, but I think if somebody's willing to pay you to be there for Strolling Magic, it's not a heavy lift to try to get them to do 2 hours. And, so, but it is a different price than the corporate gigs, I would say, like, because I've seen obscene amounts of money spent on corporate entertainment. So it's a different level. So I would say those are two different prices.
I'm curious that you put a limited, like a minimum 2-hour period on that, because I think that for me, when I quote, it's like how many people. And if it's like 60 people, 1 hour will do. If it's like 70, 80 plus, it's like you're going to need 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like, do you base your timing off the amount of people at an event?
To a certain extent, I will. Like for 60 people, I could stretch that into 2 hours, easy. Right. So that's why I want to get the hours out of it. So I'll be like, hey, with 60 people, usually the number in my head is 50 people per hour, per magician. So if it's going more than that, I'll be like, hey, you should really have me for 2 hours if you want everybody to see some good magic. And usually that's enough to be like, oh yeah, absolutely fine. Now sometimes they're limited by, oh, hey, we only have an hour. So then I'll be like, well, and again, I'll say like, usually I have a 2 hour minimum, but I'll drop that. But then I usually charge them more on the first hour to make up for if it's a, flight and hotel and all that kind of stuff. You kind of have to bake that into your price a little bit. But that's how I work it.
I've used that same booking strategy before when people want me for small house parties. You say, I don't leave the house for less than a 2 hour minimum. So if you want me to do just a small event, it's still going to be $500, for example.
Yeah. And I think something that's worth giving some inspiration to our listeners, because Jason, you touched on this, how much people are spending on other stuff at a corporate event. Like when you're sitting there going, like, I'll just throw a number out. Like, if you're just starting out and you're like, oh, will they pay $400 for me to do magic there? Like, I feel like I'm asking a lot of myself. You have to understand, if they have 200 people at their event, they're paying like $40,000 on just like the room hire and just food. And that's with like nothing happening yet. There are agencies that won't even rep you until you're charging a minimum of $5,000 above. And $5,000 is low for them. Like, I can't tell you the amount of clients that have hit me up. Like, we have this event, their budget is like $7,000. Like, can that work with you? And I'm like, yes, it can work. They want 20 minutes on stage, but they're also asking, would you mind doing the arrival cocktail closer magic? And I'm like, I could make that work. And so, like, the amount of money out there in the corporate entertainment for Strolling Magic is just, it is obscene in how much they will spend on what they want. They don't want, it's not that they want magic, it's that they want the effects of what magic will do. So what they're paying for is this mass enjoyment and wonder and fun and the memories that are going to be created from your event. And you just happen to be able to do that, right? So it's the same with stage magic. A corporate event is not booking a magician because they want magic. They want to book whatever is going to give an awesome time at their event and have people go, that was such a great award tonight. Thank you so much. Or, whatever.
Absolutely. Like, if you were dope with a yo-yo, they'd book a yo-yo guy, because the yo-yo's like, oh man, the yo-yo guy was sick and we had the best time ever. But like, it's
absolutely.
Just, magic seems to be the best medium for that. Now, here's the amazing thing. We've just clicked over an hour and the chat is still just lit with questions.
Good.
Just so many.
All right, let's do a lightning round. You read off some of them.
Yeah, let's. All right,
I'll
let's
give
do.
him. I'll give him fast.
Look, I've got one from up. We skipped Alex Lamb. He talked about booking gigs with like Gig Salad and some of the other, online kind of booking agencies. What are your thoughts about that?
I think they can work. I think they need to be part of your strategy especially if you're just starting out. What you don't have time for is your natural SEO on your website to take off, because that can take a year or longer to even start seeing the results of it, even when you know really what you're doing. And then ads are expensive if you run Google ads or Facebook ads or whatever. So it's almost like a shortcut, these kind of the gig sites, because they have really good SEO. They're already seasoned on Google. They show up in search results. And if you have a spot on their site, now that's kind of a link, a backdoor link that can get people from just a cold search to your website. I think it is worth it. Now, they're not all worth it in the same way. Do your homework, because some of them are terrible and some of them are decent. So do your homework, find out what those are. But they have their place for sure.
Business cards, are you giving them out in every interaction or just when people ask?
I would say I've done it both ways. I've moved more towards everybody's going to get a business card, whether you want it or not, because you never know. Even if they don't seem into it or whatever, and they see that card later and it evokes that memory of like, oh my God, yeah, that card ended up in his wallet. Like, how did that, and you never know where people are at the point. So even if you get that one more touch, by them finding the card later, and they'll be like, oh, and, because a lot of times people don't know that this is the thing, that you can hire magicians to come work at an event, So sometimes, a lot of times, your business card is almost like, hey, I do this for a living, call me. And, if you've got an event coming up, we can do it again. And people, it's a light bulb that goes off for them. They just don't even know that you can hire a magician to come out for a party, So sometimes, again, you have to educate your audience with that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
So good. And then, all right, let's close off with this one. What importance... Social media is a big thing in magicians' minds. Like, I have to be viral online to become a successful magician, or I have to put out whatever. Everyone has their own reasons for doing it. But in terms of making a full-time living from strolling magic, is social media actually important to be able to do that? Or is it just an offset thing? Like, is it related to doing full-time magic or not?
It's related. I would say that the amount of revenue that comes in from social media is roughly that.
Yes.
You will never.
That's $0.
$0.
Yeah.
Unless you're monetized on the video, if you've got a kicking YouTube channel or whatever, and you're making that kind of, that's a different business model. If you're talking about like finding gigs, finding clients that will actually hire you. Now, that being said, you do want to have some kind of presence, because what they are going to do is they are going to check your social media. So, if you've got 50 Instagram people on your, you're like, oh, this guy's supposed to be really good, but you would, so they'll look at the vanity, even just the vanity metrics, and kind of make a decision like, oh, this guy is legit. He's got, whatever followers on Facebook or and Instagram. So I'm not going to say it's not important, but definitely put your focus somewhere else. Like, take the time that you're making all those Instagram videos and put them into coming up with a walk around set, because you can make money with that. You're just not going to make money on social media.
Yeah,
like directly.
Yeah, that's it. It's built off relationships and getting rebooked from people, seeing you, giving out more business cards than people want.
Yep.
Because you're right, you're not getting emails going, oh, I watched your video on Instagram and
never.
I want to fly you to Dubai for our party. It's not.
But if you have the 10,000 followers, when you ask for the $10,000 paycheck, you are going to get paid. So
exactly
look at it that way.
They're going to verify it. Yeah. It's just a trade-off, but I know people that obsess over their social media and they get nothing directly from it. Again, it has its place. You can't just
if you're looking to do magic
to
professionally, if you're looking to work professionally as a magician, social media is not recommended.
No, like some of the best magicians that I look up to have almost no social media. Like, it's a weird thing. Yeah, yes, we think if we're famous online, we can charge more, do big events, and you can. But then the people that are doing all the really cool private jet to here and blah, like Doug McKenzie is a great example, posts literally nothing on his Instagram. He's forever traveling everywhere. Daniel Garcia posts nothing on his socials. We all know him. He's traveling everywhere for gigs. Like, the list goes on. And so it's so weird that like the complete opposites can both lead to a lot of work. But the key thing every time Jason has answered a question here, he's always prefaced it with, first do really good magic, and then this is what you do. So if you don't have good magic, it can only get you so far. So make that the first and super important thing, and then you do the rest. And again, it's all in here, guys. So we're going to end our episode. And first of all, thank you for coming on this show. We'll have you back anytime, because this really is the life force of what we try to do in this podcast, is to motivate our fellow magicians who are driving to gigs right now, listening to this, and amp them up and give them ideas on how to improve what they're doing. So again, go buy his book. You can claim it on tax. It's part of your business, you know?
Yep.
But we're going to end our episode the way we always do, which is by giving our guest the final word.
Okay, my final word is, we've talked about doing good magic. The book talks about what to wear, how to talk to people, scripts and whatever. But the thing I want to leave you with is that if you are thinking about either charging money for your gigs, charging more money for your gigs, and then the upper level is going professional, only making money from your gigs, keep in mind, you probably, if you're watching this right now, you have enough magic right now. You don't need to buy a bunch of more stuff. You probably have what you need already to have a successful career. It's about taking the magic you have, making it better, and then using the business side of things to actually book gigs. So don't be intimidated. You got to start somewhere, and motion creates emotion. Like you got to get moving, and it will create the opportunities. It's amazing what'll line up as soon as you put your foot in and start walking the path.
Thanks for listening. It's time for us to disappear now. But we'll see you again on the next episode of The Magic Guys.